That's the jab Mike didn't have in the first fight.
What happened here?
He got bit, I think.
Evander Holyfield, look out, he's pushed right here.
God, I've never seen that.
Unbelievable.
So many crazy things have happened in the career of Mike Tyson, but perhaps his biting of Evander Holyfield in 1997 stands out the most. The athletic prowess and erratic behavior of Mike Tyson, shaped by a turbulent childhood in Brooklyn, and his decision as a young teenager to dedicate himself to boxing. Mark Kriegel has been covering Tyson since those early days in the 80s and is one of today's foremost boxing writers. His book details both the trauma and the triumphs of a complicated life. It is Baddest Man, the making of Mike Tyson. Gosh, Mark, I don't want to age you, man, but I remember reading you all the time in the New York Post as a kid. I've always enjoyed your work, so welcome. Good to have you. Hey, I want to ask you about, Tyson's legacy as a fighter, right? I kind of feel like when Mike Tyson was fighting, people thought this is the greatest boxer they've ever seen. And, the tail end of his career, obviously a lot of losses, not the guy he was at the beginning. And I know that's kind of shaped people's perception of his legacy and where he stands among the all-time greats. I'm wondering what you think of that.
Well, I think the second part of his career, after he got out of prison, is wildly overrated as a fighter because it's just like one big crack up. But the first part of his career, his procession to the title and unifying the titles and culminating in his victory over Michael Spinks in 91 seconds, I think that ranks as one of one. He was the youngest heavyweight champion in the world. He was the kind of heavyweight champion you will no longer see today. Not only was he American, but he didn't wash out first at football or basketball. He was basically engineered to be the greatest and the youngest. So I think that what he did as a 20-year-old ranks with anything or anyone. I don't think we're going to ever see it again either.
Yeah, which Mike Tyson do? There have been very few public figures whose image has changed so much from the beginning to the end. I always think of like Snoop Dogg and that transition, right? So what is the real Mike? Because I always feel like sometimes when I'm watching him, there's that, like, when you're watching like a bear video and it's like a person interacting with the bear and they're hugging, but you're like, that bear could snap at any minute. What is the real Mike?
Well, look, there are multiple Mikes. He's a contradictory guy in many respects. But what we have here in this book, Baddest Man, it's my attempt, to reconcile myself with the villain that I covered at the Post. He was like the designated villain in my column, and figure out who the real guy is. I think at the core, and I don't mean to sound cliched here or like, half an analyst, but there's a wounded kid. And I think people somehow feel that in him for all the ferocity, for all the villainy. There's a scene in the book where he's seeing a psychologist later in life, about the cusp of 40 years old. And she has to move on from her practice. She says, I'll give you a referral. He goes, yeah, I don't think I needed to be in treatment with you anymore, but what I really need is a mother. Would you be my mother? Now, this is a guy who's done 2 stretches in an adult prison, who knows how much time in a juvenile prison, and you still go back to he's trying to fill the hole of his mother, who was essentially a broken figure. His father leaves Mike and the rest of the kids, and something in her fractures, and it certainly ruins Mike. I'm not making any excuses for him, but as one of his neighbors told me, Mike was raised by the street, so it's that child roaming the streets of Brownsville who's there at the core, and he is both ferocious and frightened.
And the trainer who famously adopted him, that wasn't as philanthropic as it seemed, like this is his adopted father. Talk about that relationship.
Not from my perspective. In our brief conversations, mostly to get ground rules, this is where Tyson pushed back. The customary story about Tyson, and you see there Cus D'Amato, who was a brilliant trainer, and had seduced generations of some of the best writers in America because he had an almost theological concept of fear. But he brings Mike out of prison as a 13-year-old. And from the very beginning, the discussion is not about like, hey, we're going to get you a GED, or maybe we'll put you in the Golden Gloves, or maybe one day we'll turn you pro, kid. From the very beginning, you're telling a 13-year-old kid who's been in lockup, you're going to be the greatest, the youngest, the biggest, the baddest, the most ferocious. And essentially, what I think that D'Amato was asking this 13-year-old kid is, make me live forever.
Yeah.
And Tyson pushes back on me. He goes, yeah, well, didn't I? As long as I'm around people, as long as people speak my name, they'll speak his. I think that's correct. My question, and part of the central question of this book is, at what price?
Yeah.
You know, it's a Faustian bargain. He's asking, don't make me, I don't want to be a boxing trainer anymore. I want to be immortal. And he is immortal, but there was a price to it.
And I was kind of surprised to learn that they consciously marketed him towards a white audience. What did that mean, and did that have any impact on him?
Well, I mean, I think it had an impact on the gate, on the way that he was built. It was, again, the same way he was created as a fighter was the same way he was built as an attraction, one of one. And in there are the seeds of why we're addicted to him even today. And I think that just the idea that he's alive makes him somewhat, no, really, there's some virtue in that you know, makes him almost an empathetic figure, his survival. But the original component of his fan base was, you know, fathers and sons in upstate New York. And he wasn't marketed as, say, Sonny Liston. He was marketed as Jack Dempsey. And there's a line in the book where someone, an old boxing hand, says, wow, they're marketing him almost like a white hope. And he had product endorsements that were not available probably to this day to many black fighters. It's an unfortunate, horrible reality. You know, I mean, Muhammad Ali was had a roach spray ad, I remember in the 70s. Right. But Tyson had Nintendo, Diet Pepsi, all sorts of big corporate stuff. And this was when he's on the way up. And the emphasis from his first camp was to make him squeaky clean. You know, he was doing PSAs for the cops and the FBI and just say no. Meanwhile, he had grown up with legendary stick-up guys in New York. He didn't really feel comfortable in the midst of this marketing campaign. And you know, frankly, he from the beginning, he always felt more comfortable playing the villain role. I think, you know, his case is somewhat akin to like today's wrestlers. If you can play the villain role, get through it, and survive with a kind of wink at your fans. And he has, whether intended or not, great comic timing.
Yeah.
You know, the people. Nobody, the figures that are most loved, I find, in American culture are the villains or ex-villains. And he certainly qualifies as one of them.
All right, the book is Baddest Man, The Making of Mike Tyson. You can follow Mark on Instagram. Mark, thanks so much.
Thank you so much, all of you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.